What's up, Juggernauts? Welcome back to the channel. Hey, if you are a repeat offender and you've been here and seen more than one video, that is the universe's way of telling you that you need to go ahead and subscribe. But in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about leaf cleanup towards the end of the year when things aren't going as smooth. You know, leaves started getting wet and they're built up and they're matted down a bit. So in this video, Rachel is using the Echo 8010 and I have the new Echo 9010. I'm not going to talk about my feelings and what I like about that blower or dislike about that blower yet. I do have a video coming up that I will talk about it. But yeah, so anyways, one of the first things we're dealing with is this, I don't know if you'd say wrought iron fence. We're dealing with this fence, and this fence is welded, so we can't take a panel off. If we could, we would have taken a panel off and actually blown the leaves from the yard through that section, probably, you know, blown the leaves from the bed back onto this patio, because leaves are easier to move on concrete than they are out of a bed or on turf. But what we're doing is blowing through this fence and underneath the boxwood bushes over here the best we can, so that we can try to get all these leaves out. So right now I'm reaching over the rails, and you know, you gotta get in there and just get dirty and figure out the best methods with those. Ideally, whenever you're moving leaves, you know, you're gonna try to manipulate the airflow so that it's blowing the leaves, obviously, but you got to get behind the leaves to push them forward. So now right here I'm blowing them off the top of the bushes. It's one of those things that if they're not well trimmed, you're not going to get every leaf, so I don't focus too much attention on it. Right here I'm telling Rachel, you know, she's walking with the blower, but she has the blower down a little bit too much, and since we just blew everything, you know, towards that section of the yard, I'm telling her to keep her nozzle on the blower high. So pay attention to that when you're walking around, because what'll happen is you'll clean a section and then you'll accidentally blow leaves back into a section, and then you got to walk back around and do some weird stuff, and it just gets to like this dance where you're back and forth. Now sometimes you have to go back and forth to blow leaves and, you know, get them into a position where you're behind it, but that is what it is. But yeah, these beds, we're starting to blow them out. We're going to work as a team. We're going to try to stay beside each other for the most part, because the thing is, two blowers are more powerful, not when they're separated, but when they're together. So you want to think of yourself as a unit, try to stay within arm's length. Oftentimes you're blowing, you know, you'll blow a wide area, but whenever there's a spot where the buildup's, you know, too thick and too dense to move by one blower, you get that other person in there pushing it at the same time, and that really helps. So these beds, they've been sitting all year. You know, the turf has been taken care of, but the bed has been sitting all year, and they have an irrigation system. So, you know, while they're moving decent on top, the bottom 2 or 3 inches are matted down, wet, nasty. We've got a lot of obstacles in here because of plants. You can't see a lot of them because they're dormant and they don't have their leaves on them. But over there towards the fence, you'll start seeing them as we blow more leaves out. There's a lot of dense planting. So whenever you're doing an estimate for leaf removal, you need to kind of think about, hey, how many plants are in that bed, because that's going to take time to blow it. You know, obviously if there's nothing in the way, the leaves blow around a lot easier, but if there's a plant there and you got to blow it around that plant, they're going to build up and, you know, be kind of hard to get past that. Same thing with vines. You want to keep an eye on if they have irrigation and it's been wet. Obstacles like, you know, what kind of border they have. Maybe they have a rock border where there's almost a lip. You know, trees and bushes and nooks and crannies where it's hard to maneuver. All that stuff adds up and takes up time. So, you know, when I was looking at this property just for the backyard, I budgeted and estimated that it's going to take us 2 hours. Well, you hit right on 2 hours. So it was actually 2 hours and 20 minutes to clean up the backyard, and the largest portion of that wasn't blowing the leaves out of the beds. It was actually moving the leaves from the backyard to the front yard. So that's going to be some stuff that you have to keep in consideration, whether you're a residential homeowner doing it for yourself, or if you are a commercial home or a commercial business where you're actually selling this service. you know, moving the leaves from the back to the front is pretty much the hardest part. And I like to use a tarping method when they start getting wet. If they're dry, and you've seen some other videos, you know that I'll blow them to the front. But if they are pretty wet, we use a tarping method. And right here, Rachel and I are kind of communicating. You know, Rachel doesn't go out and work with me a whole lot, so if that's the case, and you have an employee that, you know, they're not really able to flow like you with working because they don't have the experience and they're not doing it on a daily basis, you might need to coach them a little bit, get them pointing in the right direction. What we did in the backyard is we chose to put everything in 3 piles. But as far as blowing everything to the front, you know, if you're a homeowner or maybe a commercial guy in the beginning, you might be bagging the material up so that the city can pick it up. I know some areas they'll just put it to the curb and the city comes by with a vacuum, but they don't do that here. You know, if you put it to the curb, it's got to be in clear bags or in black bags with refuse stickers that you can buy at Quick Trip. Look, the neighbors are checking us out. What are they doing? They got a few leaves in my yard. They blew over the fence. Who knows? Oh, yep. That's funny. Yeah, so they're up on the balcony. Anyways, you're inevitably going to have a few leaves here and there blow over the fence. It just is what it is. Hopefully we didn't get a lot of them. You know, obviously I do my best to make sure that we're not blowing material into the neighbor's yard. It's just inconsiderate, and ultimately will get you a bad review. So as I'm working the pile, I've got some good point of view shots coming up, but you'll notice that I'm not just holding the blower and standing still. If you just stand still and point the blower at one spot, well, guess what? The leaves are going to move out of that one spot. They're not going to move out of the rest of the area that you need to blow them. So you got to be moving around. So you'll notice I use a lot of walking methods, and when I'm using the blower, I'll use different fanning methods, whether I'm moving the nozzle up and down or side to side. Sometimes I do a swirl method, like right here I'm going left to right, back and forth, almost sweeping that turf. When you're blowing out beds, if they have mulch, try to keep it more parallel to the ground and not pointing down at the ground. The more vertical you have the nozzle pointing to the ground, the more pressure is going to be at the actual ground. So be careful there. But you know, sometimes that is needed if you have like wet and nasty leaves that are built up, or dense, thick grass clippings that you're breaking up in the summertime. So I set that cover up there. I'm going to put it back here in a minute. But yeah, so, you know, that's really the basic thing, is just get the leaves in front of you so you can blow them around. And what's going to happen is you're going to have to blow, see right here, I'm blowing this leaf debris out of that section so I can get this leaf debris that's closer to me out that little gate. But if I don't move the big pile, they just dam up there. So we want to actually kind of blow everything using the fence line as a you know, a guide to help move the leaves. Unless you have a bunch of obstacles on the fence line, then try to keep them off the fence line. And then you want to try to push them out away from the corners before you get to the corners. And what you're going to do there is you're actually going to get real close to the fence, almost hugging the fence. And you're going to do a fanning motion from the fence and then moving outwards. So you'll probably see me do that here in just a second. We've got some rocks. I want to try to, like I said, keep it more parallel, try not to push those out. Although these cobblestones, they are a bit heavier. They don't blow around like, say, lava rock. You know, lava rock will move very easy. Coming in here, this is what I was talking about, being up against the fence. I'm blowing it out and away. So I'm kind of starting by the fence, hugging real close, and just moving it the best I can. Now I've got an obstacle here that's going to cause a choke point and make it just a pain. So let's go ahead and move that out of the way. That allows me to get in there. Ideally, I want to get the airflow into that corner. I want to blow onto the fence a little bit, and that'll help push it out and away. Once I have enough of it away, I'll put myself in the corner. I'll stand there and I'll actually use the air and I'll blow behind me. Okay. See, in this here, I'm blowing onto the actual fence. That pushes it kind of out and away. then I can go more steep, and I'll push behind me with the blower, and that gets it all out and away, puts it in front of me so I can get it in a pile. Now in here we're just getting it over into this section on the concrete. That way we have it in a pile, we can actually tarp it later and move it. You might have to rework some of the areas that you have already worked. So what I like to do is consider it like a bulk pass, where I'm getting the large majority of the leaves, and then I come in and I do more of a finishing or polishing pass. And what happens is I'm getting it in a pile, so some of the leaves are going to blow off to the side, and you know, like I said, I'm going to come in, and I don't really consider this a finishing pass. What happens is later in the video, after we move the leaves from the backyard to the front yard, there's going to be a little bit of debris left. That's when I do my finishing pass, is normally when we're vacuuming the leaves onto the or into the truck. I'll be right there. All right, at this point we have reached the midway point of cleaning up the leaves in the backyard and getting them out. So what we did is blew them all out of the beds. We've got them in rough piles. So the reason why I didn't blow this section into that pile is there's no need. What I'm going to do is we just need it in an area where the leaves are in mostly in a pile, and then an area we can put the tarp down. So I can put the tarp right there. These leaves will go onto the tarp, and those leaves will go onto the tarp, and then we'll drag it out of here. And then coming over to this other section, we've got the same thing, leaves in the pile. They are ready to go and get cleaned up. And then we have an additional third pile that we're going to be pulling out of here, and it'll be this section here. Not too bad. On the concrete, they're easy to blow, easy to move. Now coming down the house here, we've got leaf debris. I'm not worried about cleaning this section up yet, so we didn't waste any time over here. In fact, I even blew some more over onto this section. We're going to be bringing the tarps through here, and inevitably whenever you use a tarp, you drop some debris, so you have to clean up a little bit afterwards. So all of this is going to get blown out onto this fence. We'll blow it down to this fence, and then out and straight up to the front, and we'll vacuum it up. So more than likely what's going to happen is I'm going to put all of the debris onto the concrete here, because it's easier to clean up leaf debris off of concrete than it is turf if you're vacuuming it up, because you can get more material. So having said that, well, I just don't want to have to re-clean the grass over here. So we're going to blow this and polish it, but it's not a high priority concern. Alright, so there's always a little bit of debris that gets under the tarp. You just grab the front of the tarp, and you pull it forward about 6 to 8 inches, and then rake that into a pile first. easy to get through the gates. I always tie it to the back. Sometimes if it's real wide, I'll take a carabine clip and I'll put it in the middle in the eyelets just to hold the center kind of narrow so that it fits on the gates. You want to pull it as far as you can. The more you tie with it, it'll stay looser, and that way you can untie it easy. Here. Alright, so on this one we're going to lay out the tarp, and then we're going to cut the pile in half, put it on the tarp, then drag the tarp over and get the other half of the pile. That way we're not moving stuff, you know, 10 or 12 feet. If you're going to use the method of using tarps, I would suggest not getting too large of a tarp unless you have a mower to pull it or a second person helping you. Even then you have to be careful because you can get a lot of weight. You know, leaves by themselves, you don't think about it being very heavy, but when they add up and they're wet and they've got, you know, dirt covering them because they've been sitting there all year, you can easily get, you know, 500, 600, 700 pounds or more onto a tarp, and then before you know it, you could damage your body or your equipment. So, you know, just if you have to make more trips, make more trips. That pile over there will take in 2 or 3 trips. All right, I know that last one didn't look heavy, but it was. So, you know, you got to be careful. You'll trash out your legs on something like that. And, you know, when you're cleaning up leaves, it's more of a marathon and not a race. Obviously, you want to be fast, but you also need to make sure that you can last to get the job done. If you trash yourself out and you got to quit for the day, bummer. If you're Juggernaut, you'll push through it anyways. To walk through the material when it's real wet and nasty and thick. You'll see me do that a lot with tarps. People suggest snow shovels, and that works pretty good with mulched leaves if you got a real thick pile of leaves that you have mulched. But I don't really like using a snow shovel too often. I've found that it's just easier for me to walk through it and then rake what's left afterwards. So you get the bulk and break it up with walking, and then from there you can rake it up pretty easy. Alright, this is the heaviest, wettest, nastiest stuff that came out of the bed last. So that pile is probably really heavy. We're going to go ahead and take this as its own tarp. What we're going to do is grab this corner. Grab that. I'm going to grab this corner. We just want to get this in the center of the tarp. We're going to walk. Just like that. That's good. Side up. We're good to go. Alright, now this looks simple and it doesn't look like it's that bad or that hard. This is actually the hardest part of leaf cleanups generally, and the most physically tasking part. So, you know, you guys might ask sometimes, why do I only use the blowers to push stuff out to the front? Well, when the leaves are dry and I can push them with the blowers, it's a great method and it's less physically tasking. And since we do several of these in a day, it's kind of the best method to allow my body to handle the capacity of the workload. But sometimes you just got to go about it and get it done with the tarps, especially when they're wet. In this case, we didn't have a clear path to blow it out of the yard, and the leaves are pretty wet. Now, this is where the leaf loader shines out and it really shows the purpose of it. A lot of people think that it will speed a job up and make it faster, and that's just not true. Like I said, the quickest way to get these leaves off the property would be to have an empty trailer, put them in the tarp, and drag them into the trailer. The problem with that is if you're doing multiple properties in one day, you can't fit the same amount of leaf debris in your setup. So for me, I like to put it in the back of my truck bed versus my trailer. I've done both methods. Both methods work great. It's really whatever's best for you and where you're at. I used to just carry the 36 and I would use that to shred up the mower, the leaves, and that would work well as well. But you know, where we're at in our business and the amount of leaf cleanups we're doing, and the size of the leaf cleanups we're doing, it just makes sense for us to use a leaf loader, because then we can load the debris and not have to take multiple trips to the dump in one day, and we won't have to you know, leave equipment like our mowers at the property and come back the following day, which is something that used to happen all the time. So if you're in that stage, just know that's kind of part of the business. You'll grow, you'll expand, you'll get better equipment every year. Things start looking better every year. Don't immediately think you're gonna have an awesome setup, because you know, it took me several years to have the setup that I have, and I still look at other setups and I'm like, that would be nice. So it's one of those things that never kind of stops. Just, you know, enjoy what you have in the process of being where you're at and growing.
All right, we're all wrapped up. It's looking good. We didn't really do anything up front. They're having the house power washed because they're gonna paint it. And that's Tim right there, and he's gonna be painting the house. They're going all one color. Should look pretty sharp. I guess the house is going on the market. Surprise, surprise. I'm telling you, houses in Tulsa are selling like crazy. So, you know, people are moving out of town, moving around, selling. Some people are going to Texas. Texas has got a lot to offer, but a lot of people are coming here too. So the backyard, we got the beds all cleaned out, looking sharp, and you know, not too bad. It looks good. It took about an hour and 20 minutes. I'm sorry, it took about 2 hours and 20 minutes. And that's with moving the camera and stuff. So, bill for an even 2 hours. I'm out. You have a good one.